He cheated with my wife. You won't believe what happened next. Pro revenge. The notification popped up on my phone while I was waiting for Sarah at the Aviary, a fancy cocktail bar downtown. See you tonight, handsome. Can't wait. It wasn't for me. The number was unfamiliar. My gut clenched. It was a Saturday and Sarah said she was having dinner with her mother. I dialed the number. It went straight to voicemail. A generic, computerized voice. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a wrong number, maybe a prank, but the feeling in my stomach wouldn't let it go. Sarah arrived, apologizing for being late. Mom wanted to show me her new antique collection, she said, kissing me on the cheek. She smelled faintly of perfume I didn't recognize. The entire evening was a blur. I went through the motions, forcing smiles and making conversation, but my mind was racing. Every glance, every touch felt tainted. I replayed our past in my head, searching for signs I'd missed. How could I have been so blind? That night, I couldn't sleep. Sarah was next to me, breathing softly, but she felt like a stranger. I got out of bed and grabbed my laptop. I started with the phone number from the text. A quick search revealed it was a burner phone, untraceable. Damn it. Then I thought about our firm, Davies Mark Architecture, my partnership with David Davies. We'd been friends since college. He was the charismatic front man, I was the meticulous designer. It worked. We built a successful business. But lately, things felt off. I'd brushed it off as stress. I started digging into our financials. I knew the basics, but David handled the day-to-day accounting. That's where I found it. A series of invoices to shell companies for consulting services, signed off by David. Substantial amounts of money. I recognized some of the addresses: empty lots, dilapidated buildings. No actual work had been done. My heart hammered in my chest. This wasn't just an affair, this was fraud. And if David was stealing money, Sarah probably knew about it. The next morning I went to work, my mind a whirlwind of anger and betrayal. I tried to act normal, but it was excruciating. David breezed in, full of energy, slapping me on the back. "Ready to crush it today, buddy?" he asked, his smile sickeningly genuine. I forced a smile back. Absolutely. That's when I decided I wouldn't confront them. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I would play their game, but I would play it better. Over the next few weeks, I became obsessed. I spent every spare moment gathering evidence. I meticulously documented the financial irregularities, tracing the money flow to offshore accounts. I reviewed old emails, project files, anything that could expose David's scheme. I needed help. I couldn't go to the police without solid proof. A friend recommended Alina Vance. She was a shark, known for her aggressive tactics and unwavering loyalty to her clients. Her rates were astronomical, but I figured I was playing for keeps. Alina's office was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs. She listened patiently as I laid out my story, her expression unreadable. "So you want to expose your business partner for fraud and get revenge on your cheating wife," she summarized, her voice flat. "Ambitious. I have evidence," I said, handing her a thick binder. "I believe it's enough to start an investigation." She flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning the documents. "This is a good start, Mr. Mark, but we'll need more. And be prepared, this will get messy. Very messy." Alina's first piece of advice was to keep my suspicions to myself. "Let them think they're getting away with it," she said. "The more comfortable they are, the more mistakes they'll make." I subtly started undermining David at work. I'd point out flaws in his designs, suggest alternative solutions, always careful to make it seem like I was just being helpful. I knew he was arrogant and couldn't stand being corrected. It worked. He became increasingly agitated, snapping at me in meetings and questioning my decisions. "You seem distracted lately, Mark," he said one afternoon, his eyes narrowed. "Everything all right?" "Just tired," I said casually. "Lots on my plate. I needed someone on the inside." David's secretary, Brenda, had been with the firm for years. She was efficient, loyal, but I always sensed a quiet resentment beneath her professional demeanor. She was always the last to know and often had to pick up David's slack. I started bringing her coffee, complimenting her work, making small talk. "You know, Brenda," I said one day, "I've always appreciated your dedication to the firm. You really keep things running smoothly." "Thank you, Mark," she said, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "It's nice to be appreciated." I subtly started probing for information. I'd ask about specific projects, David's meetings, anything that could give me an edge. She was hesitant at first, but gradually she started opening up. "David's been under a lot of pressure lately," she said one day. "Mr. Ashton is demanding a lot." Thomas Ashton, a powerful real estate developer, David's biggest client. That was the connection I needed. I learned that David was cutting corners on the Ashton project, using cheaper materials and unqualified contractors. It was all about maximizing profit, regardless of the quality of the work. This could be huge. Around this time, Emily Carter, a young journalist from a local newspaper, started sniffing around. She'd heard rumors of trouble at our firm and wanted a story. I initially brushed her off. The last thing I needed was media attention, but Alina suggested a different approach. Control the narrative, she said. Use her to your advantage, but be careful. She's ambitious. I agreed to meet with Emily, but I kept things vague. I hinted at internal disagreements, creative differences, but I didn't reveal anything concrete. I wanted her to be hungry for the story, but not to have enough to publish anything damaging until I was ready. The tension at work was unbearable. David and I were barely speaking. Sarah was distant, preoccupied. I felt like I was living a double life, pretending to be normal while plotting their downfall. Then, Brenda came to me, her face pale. "Mark, I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "I know about the shell companies. I know about the Ashton project. It's wrong. I can't be a part of it." She handed me a USB drive. "Everything is on here. Copies of invoices, emails, contracts, everything. This was it, the smoking gun." I took the evidence to Alina. She reviewed it carefully, a grim satisfaction on her face. "This is enough," she said. "We can move forward." The next morning, I contacted the authorities. I presented them with the evidence of David's fraud, the shell companies, Ashton project. They launched an immediate investigation. The news broke the following day. Local architecture firm embroiled in financial scandal, the headlines screamed. The story was everywhere. David was suspended. Sarah was questioned. Our firm was in chaos. Thomas Ashton immediately distanced himself from David. The Ashton project was put on hold. David's empire was crumbling. Sarah was furious. She confronted me at home, her voice shrill. "How could you do this? Mark, you're destroying everything. You and David destroyed everything first," I said, my voice cold. "This is just the consequence of your actions." "David did it for us, Mark, for our future," she screamed. "He wanted to provide for us by stealing from the company," I scoffed. "By risking everything we've built." She glared at me, her eyes filled with hate. "I never loved you, Mark. You were always so boring. David is exciting. He's a winner." "Enjoy your winner," I said, turning my back on her. "He's about to lose everything." The divorce was brutal. Sarah tried to paint me as an abusive husband, claiming her affair with David was an escape from my control. Alina tore her apart in court. She presented evidence of Sarah's complicity in David's fraud, her extravagant spending habits, her knowledge of the shell companies. Emily Carter, armed with information I had carefully leaked, published a series of articles detailing the affair, the financial crimes, and the courtroom drama. The public was captivated. David was indicted on multiple charges of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. He tried to blame me, claiming I was jealous of his success and framed him. But the evidence was overwhelming. The trial was a media circus. I testified against David, detailing his scheme and his betrayal. Alina cross-examined him mercilessly, exposing his lies and his arrogance. In the end, the jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Sarah's reputation was in tatters. She lost her friends, her social standing, everything. She was forced to sell her assets to pay for her legal fees. I won the divorce. I regained control of the architectural firm, but the victory felt hollow. The firm was tarnished, our reputation damaged. I had to lay off employees, restructure the business. It was a long and arduous process to rebuild what had been destroyed. Detective Riley, who led the fraud investigation, paid me a visit after the trial. "You got your revenge, Mr. Mark," he said, his voice somber. "But at what cost?" He pointed out that some of the methods I used to gather evidence were questionable, borderline illegal. I had tapped phones, accessed private emails, and manipulated people. "You may have brought down the bad guys," he said, "but you also compromised yourself in the process." He was right. I had become the thing I hated. I had stooped to their level. I stood on the balcony of my apartment, overlooking the city skyline. The buildings I had designed, the city I had helped build, felt tainted. I had achieved my revenge. David and Sarah were ruined. I had regained my firm, but I was left with a bitter taste in my mouth. The war was won, but the battle had cost me more than I ever imagined, and I wasn't so sure it was worth it, especially when Brenda gave notice at work. "I appreciate everything you've done for me, Mark," she said softly, "and I wish you all the best. But it's time I moved on. I need to go somewhere with no memories." I knew this was it, the beginning of a new chapter. But how would I ever trust someone again? Then a new architect came in to interview, a young woman with an eye for detail and a hunger to make a difference. She was also beautiful. "So Mark," she said with a smile and a twinkle in her eye. "Ready to start again?" I knew where this was heading, and this time I would be ready.